Well, let's get across investors were buying and selling over the past week over at nabtrade. Gemma Dale joining us here in the studio. Gemma, great to have you back. I want to kick off straight off the bat. Yep. Lake Resources. I don't think I've not seen a more tumultuous entry into the benchmark Australian share index than this company right now. Yep. What have investors been doing that now with this volatility we've been seeing?
Yeah, no, it all happened, didn't it, in 1 week? That's quite extraordinary. Our guys have had Lake in the mix of the lithium trade, which has been happening over the last, honestly, I want to say in the last 2 years, really, but it's been heating up over the last 12 months. And it's been sort of in the mix. There's been quite a range, frankly. Used to be miners and milk, now it's just miners and miners. And they've been buying, and it's been something that people have been happy to hold for a little while. This week, they've struggled to play it, which I find really interesting. Our guys love a bargain, but they don't like a falling knife. Everybody feels the same way about that. And they're very unsure about which way this one's going to go in particular. So Core got hammered as well. They bought that for different reasons, right? It's just kind of getting caught up in the sell-off, whereas Lake, they're like, don't love CEO leaving without any news. I don't love those things. They make me uncomfortable. So we could just see really mixed trading in it. It's trading, but it's very mixed.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the other commodities? Because we've had some pretty depressed prices, pretty wild moves on the day in terms of future pricing. A lot of pressure coming through, even a bit of re-rating coming in, say, BHP, for example. So are those being looked upon as bargains now?
Yeah, it's such an interesting, like BHP was $35, $36 late last year, right? It's not like it's massive, deep bargain territory. It's, you know, a 9-month low, let's call it. And so for our guys, they're buying it, but it's strong on a relative basis. It's not an 80-90% buy, it's like a 75% buy. They quite like it. But they don't love anything at the moment, to be honest with you. They're a little bit like...
Is that it?
Yeah, the reluctance is really showing at the moment. The most obvious thing is all of the small guys have left. So it's really only our big traders left making their moves, and the smaller guys are just sitting on the sidelines. You can see a bit of cleaning up of portfolios. You can see the bigger guys still eking out what they can, but it's really contracted in terms of what they're going to trade and how much they're going to play it and how many traders are in it still, and investors who are kind of cleaning up end of financial year.
Sentiment indicator,
you know?
Yeah.
It's not a buy the dip opportunity, that's for sure.
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
well, that's to my next point. I was going to ask about the banks. We saw that last week the banking index went and fell to fresh multi-year lows, and we've got people talking about recession everywhere at the moment. What's going on in that space? Because we know that the yield is still very attractive at this point in time, but we know that there are risks attached.
I think for our guys, it's interesting. They've already got a ton of banks, right? It's not like they're like, oh, I don't have any of that. I should probably diversify my portfolio. They're like, it's already 50%. I should probably get that down a bit. So there's a lot of bank holdings in there. They love it. They've been buying it. You got to remember also, they bought it like nobody's business during COVID. So they bought an enormous amount. 3 of the big 4 were like $14 for a day or two. But they bought very aggressively during that period. They've done extremely well out of it. So it's not like they desperately need more bank exposure. They are, however, sort of grabbing a little bit more here and there. Last week they were buying aggressively. We had a couple of massive days last week. This week it's started to settle down a bit where we're not seeing those heavy red days anymore. Westpac's still the preference. NAB has actually sold really heavily yesterday, which is really interesting. Something about $27. That was a good number to get out. But it's not what it was.
So CBA is about $88 as we speak.
Yes.
Is that a buy then for the NAB traders?
There is some enthusiasm under $90. So it's not like they ignored it completely. They were happy to buy under $90. But again, it was 70 a couple of years ago, right? So it's not like it's deep bargain territory for them. They've all remembered their prices, right? They know what they got in at. And for those who've held for a long time, they really enjoyed buying the deep weakness a couple of years ago. They also know they've been capital raisings and all of those sorts of things. It's not like these are super cheap prices by their standards. So they're picking them up. Again, it's the big guys. Yeah.
You mentioned cleaning up portfolios ahead of end of financial year, of course, next week. What's some of the interesting moves you've seen at the individual stock levels? What's going on there? It's
just interesting to see where you're like, oh, I can see what you're doing there. Zip, the last little bit of that's gone. They're just getting rid of that completely. I think I was saying to you, there was like a final capitulation a couple of weeks ago where they went, I can't take this anymore, I'm out. And then obviously there's a few more people going, right, that's it. I've got to clean this up at the end of the year. Other little bits and pieces, basically anything got absolutely hammered, they'll just just trim it out.
Brain
That's got to go.
chip.
Brain chip, that's interesting. We're seeing that little just drift away at the moment. But some of those trading stocks that they really liked, if they accidentally kind of kept a bit, they'll clean it up at this time.
Yeah. Well, end of financial year.
Yeah,
You know
there
the
are
drill.
worse things to do.
How about offshore? It's just sort of in my mind this morning that we're approaching U.S. quarterlies again. I mean, it officially starts next week, but they just drab, in until the second week of July when we start to get the big banks.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we seeing in the States?
I think what's most interesting is that we don't just have the States. You can buy UK, Germany, and Hong Kong as well, but they don't. It's mostly the States, let's be honest, all about the States. But it's been a really consistent buy pattern. That's all it has been for years. International's been about accumulating sort of really nice chunky holdings in things that you want exposure to. They're passion projects for people. They buy something because they love it and want to hang on to it. We are seeing selling, and it is the first time I've seen consistent selling offshore ever in all the years that we've been offering it, which is like 7, I want to say. People just starting to trim down those portfolios. It's quite interesting. Tesla's a sell now, Amazon's a sell now. So Snap was a massive sell. Someone had a couple of $100,000 worth of that. They got rid of it, which given it's down 80% means it might have been a really massive sell had they sold it a bit earlier. But it's interesting, they're just trying to clean that up.
Just around the turn of the quarter, what can you usually see after the quarter ends? So are we going to see like a big influx of no activity taking place?
Not so much. I mean, our guys are not. They're
Calendar driven.
Yeah, they're not They're not institutional traders. They don't have to report to anyone except themselves and perhaps their accountant. So end of financial year matters, but the quarter is irrelevant.
Okay.
End of financial year is a thing. So actually, one that we did see was CSL, which I find really interesting because it's not moved dramatically over a 12-month period.
Though?
It's cleaning out at the moment, but not for any obvious reason, right? Maybe they just wanted something that they were just tidying up in the corner. But they don't have those deadlines, so it's only end of financial year. They won't worry about July.
Fair enough.
Gemma Dale, nabtrade, always good to see you. Know it's a Friday. Hope you have a good weekend.
You too, guys. Thank you.
It's great to have you in.